Hi, I'm Brian Whitmer and I'm going to teach you how to play Tempted by Squeeze on the piano. This tutorial is for people who intend to accompany a singer or to sing the melody themselves. It's not for people who want to play the melody in their right hand. My apologies to those of you who want to play along with the record, but I'm teaching this tutorial in A instead of the original key of B because that's where I can sing it without hurting myself. Feel free to vent your irritation in the comments, but your time would be better spent learning how to transpose music. Or how to learn songs by ear for that matter. As it happens, I have a video about how to do that. Links down below. Let's dive in. Like a lot of 80s pop tunes, instead of a strong backbeat, Tempted features a rather even, straight-ahead, pulsing groove that comes down just a little harder on beats 1 and 3 than on 2 and 4, with a little more oomph on beat 3. Shoom dum doo da, shoom dum doo da, 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4. If you're playing this on your own then without a drummer or a bass player, I recommend using a specific rhythm pattern that highlights this. Come take a look. In your left hand, toggle a pair of octave A's on beats 1 and 2. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pinky thumb 3, 4. Pinky thumb 3, 4. Skip beat 3 and then come down on the octaves together on beat 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pinky thumb 3 together. Pinky thumb 3 together. To add in the right hand, all you do is play a major chord on beat 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pinky thumb chord octaves. I bought a toothbrush, some toothpaste, a flannel for my face, pajamas, a hairbrush, new shoes, and a case. Do you have to do it this way? No. In fact, I found a video of Glenn Tilbrook, co-writer of the song, playing it on solo piano, and he's just pounding out chords on each beat of every measure like this. I bought a toothbrush, some toothpaste, a flannel for my face. So if he doesn't play it my way, why should you? Because, Chucklehead, unless you're Glenn Tilbrook, your audience isn't so starstruck that they'll tolerate whatever lackluster performance you decide to turn in. Your audience is expecting to hear something that reminds them of the recorded version they're familiar with. And since you're standing in for the whole band, not just the keyboard, to impress them you'll need to do more than mash down block chords on every beat. So let's spend a minute putting this pattern into muscle memory before I teach you the intro. Pinky thumb, chord together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. When you get used to that, start switching chords. So we'll do 2 measures of A and 2 measures of D. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's do 1 measure of each. Now let's throw in an E chord. Once you feel comfortable with that, we're ready to learn the introduction. The intro to Tempted has just 2 chords and a walking bass line. If you play it like I'm about to show you, people will recognize it immediately, even though you're missing the drum kit, the bass, and the organ featured in the original recording. Here's what the intro will look like when we're done with it. In the left hand, you're just doing 2 measures of A, 2 measures of D. In the right hand, you're walking this bass down from A to G to F sharp to D. Again. Now there is a little bit of a difference here on that last beat. Instead of doing the octave Ds again like we normally do, our pattern has been 1, 2, rest, 4 on the same note. In this case, we're going to, on that last beat, we're going to jump up to this F sharp. So it's going to be like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Putting them together. Now I did that to help get it into your muscle memory, but in reality you're only going to do that one time in the introduction. The second time we go down that scale, when we hit this F sharp in the bass, we're going to jump up here and play a G chord. That's a D, G, and a B. And it sounds awful like that, but it's a passing chord, so it resolves quickly to this D. So an F sharp in the bass with a G, and then D. D in the bass, D chord. What we're doing is combining a little organ riff with the piano part, because the audience is going to be expecting that from the recording. So here's the full intro. Pause and repeat that as many times as you need to until it gets into muscle memory. As we go into the verses, I'm afraid I have some daunting news. This song contains 13 chords, 21 if you count slash chords. Now that you've learned the introduction and have an investment in learning the rest of the song, I feel I can break that to you. Hang in there, you can do this. The verses are long, so I'm going to break them up into 2 sections. Here's a demo of what we're going to learn in the next section. I bought a toothbrush, some toothpaste, flannel for my face, pajamas, a hairbrush, new shoes, and a case. We're going to stop there because that's a lot of chords already, and there are plenty more to come. So we start with an A, and we're going to walk down the bass, but instead of going to the G like we did in the introduction, we're going to a G sharp. And you're leaving the A chord in the right hand. And then F sharp in the bass and an F sharp minor chord, minor 7 if you want to throw that in there. I bought a toothbrush, some toothpaste, flannel for my face. Jump up to a D sharp in the bass, but a B chord in your right hand. Pajamas, a hairbrush for 2 measures, and then D minor, 2 measures. New shoes and a case. Back to the top. I bought a toothbrush, some toothpaste, flannel for my face, pajamas, a hairbrush, new shoes, and a case. Do that until it's very comfortable. And then let's go on to the second part of the first verse. Here's what it's going to sound like. I said to my reflection, let's get out of this place. So that's an A minor for 1 measure, A minor with a G in the bass for 1 measure, E minor for 2 measures, and then F chord in the right hand with the G in the bass for 2 beats, then a G in both hands for 1 beat, and then a C in both hands for 1 beat. Separating the hands out in the left hand, that's 3 G's in a row. 1, 2, 3, C. G, 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 C. In the right hand, it's 2 F chords, a G chord, and a C chord. Putting that together. So again, just that second section of the first verse. A minor. I said to my reflection, let's get out of this place. When you got that comfortably under your hands, come back to this point in the video and let's get on to the pre-chorus. The pre-chorus is also so long I'm going to divide it into two sections. So here's the first section. Past the church and the steeple, the laundry on the hill, billboards and the buildings, memories of it still keep calling. Let's stop there and back up. We start with a D. Past the church and the steeple. Now that's two measures, but on the fourth beat of the second measure, instead of coming back down on that D like we always do in the left hand, we're going to walk up to the E because we're headed for this F. So there's a passing bass note. Past the church and the steeple, the laundry on the hill. And then on the fourth beat of that measure, we're going to walk up again to that G. Past the church and the steeple, the laundry on the hill. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're headed for this A, but things are getting crowded here. So this is where I will jump down to that G. Instead of this G, drop down to that G to continue up to the A. Past the church and the steeple, the laundry on the hill, billboards and the buildings. Here we jump from this A to a C sharp. On the fourth beat, which then comes to this D, but in the right hand, we're going to play a G chord. So it's past the church and steeple, the laundry on the hill, billboards and the buildings, memories of it still. So again, the A is two measures, billboards and the buildings. On the fourth beat, we jump up to that C sharp, billboards and the buildings. And then we have a G chord in the right hand, D in the bass. Memories of it still. And then jump up to this C sharp and augment the G chord. And what I mean by that is we take the fifth note, there's the G chord, we take the fifth interval and raise it a half step. That gives us an augmented G, and we're following that in the bass from the D to the D sharp. And then we're landing on a C chord with an E in the bass. So again, first part of the pre-chorus. Past the church and the steeple, the laundry on the hill, billboards and the buildings, memories of it still keep calling. And here's what the next part is going to look like. Calling and calling, but forget it all, I know I will. So going back to where we left off, the C with the E in the bass, keep calling, two measures, and calling D, two measures. But forget it all, we're back to the C with the E in the bass. Now we're going to walk this down, walk the bass down to an E flat or a D sharp, your choice, with an F7 chord in the right hand for one measure, D in the bass and in the right hand, one measure, and then a measure of a D chord with the C in the bass. So the bass is walking down. Calling and calling, but forget it all, I know I will. So let's go back to the top of the pre-chorus. D. Past the church and the steeple, the laundry on the hill, billboards and the buildings, memories of it still keep calling and calling, but forget it all, I know I will. And now you're ready for the chorus. I think it's nearly always a good idea to change your rhythm pattern when you move from verse to chorus. You don't have to, of course, but pop bands usually do something to bring additional energy to the chorus, like new instruments or vocal harmonies. If you're playing solo, your best alternative is to change rhythm patterns. It's also going to be helpful to bring in some of the more prominent licks and riffs that get played by other instruments in the original recording. Keeping all that in mind, here's how I play the chorus of Tempted. The chorus is a lot like the introduction. It's 2 measures of A, 2 measures of D, with a walking bass. But instead of doing that rhythm, I'm going to change it up by just doing a more plodding, straightforward rhythm. In the right hand, we're going to jump up here higher because they do that on the recording. The keyboard player does a lot of this quick stabbing attacks on this high A up here. Which adds a lot of energy to the song. For clarity's sake, I'm going to divide the chorus into 2 sections too. The first section will sound like this. Tempted by the fruit of another, tempted but the truth is discovered. What's been going on now that you have gone? So I've got an A chord in the right hand, making sure I'm reaching all the way up to grab that high A. And then when I get down to the F sharp in the left hand, I switch to a D chord in the right hand, but I still hold on to that A. And I don't think I play it the same way twice in a row. I have a tendency, sometimes I'll grab the E and the A, sometimes I'll grab the C sharp and the A. And frankly, when I play it, I don't hit that A on every measure the way they do on the original recording. It's a lot. It can be hard to listen to without all the other band members to cushion it. So I end up doing the A chord for a measure a little bit lower. And then when I go on to the next measure of A with the G in the bass, that's when I'll grab that. Then I'll come down again for the D, back up again. Tempted by the fruit of another, tempted but the truth is discovered. What's been going on? This is a B chord with a B in the bass. And I usually start it up here and walk it down here, and then it goes to a E sus4 to an E. Actually, I think I'm playing that as an E7 sus4, and you're welcome to do the 7th or not. Tempted by the fruit of another, tempted but the truth is discovered. What's been going on now that you have gone? There's no other. And then we do the same thing again. Tempted by the fruit of another, tempted but the truth is discovered. This time we do a B minor instead of a B major. Then we finish with a little run of triads. We're going to jump this B in the bass up to a D in the left hand, and in the right hand we're going to take this B and D, and then we're going to jump to the C sharp and the E, and then the D and the F, and back down, and then up again to the E and the G. And in between each of these, you're dropping down on that D. So again, from the B minor. B minor, 2 measures, then D. And that takes you right back to the top for the next verse. I'm at the car park, the airport, the baggage carousel. The people keep on crowding and wishing I was well. Sorry, my bad. So have fun playing this awesome 80s classic. If you found my tutorial helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Also, please let me know if you ever post a cover of this song. See you next time.